Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled Migration and Publishing Workflows Using ArcGIS Pro. My name is Ian Greensmith, and I'm a higher education analyst working in the Education and Research Group out of our Toronto office here for Esri Canada. In this webinar, I'll provide an overview of ArcGIS Pro, but in the context of two specific workflows. So rather than hearing about features and functions of ArcGIS Pro, I'll walk you through some common migration and publishing workflows to bring an existing project into from ArcMap into ArcGIS Pro. For some additional context, I'll actually also touch briefly on how you can go about getting a license for ArcGIS Pro at your school. So let's move into our first section and introduce ArcGIS Pro for those of you who are new to it, and talk about how it fits in the ArcGIS platform. What you see on your screen is the Esri geoinformation model. Takeaways from this slide are the interconnectedness of the ArcGIS system as a whole. This means that you can connect via any device, anywhere, and access content at any time. For its part, ArcGIS Desktop, which ArcGIS Pro is technically part of, fits nicely, and since they are tightly integrated with the web, can both publish and share content and even consume services that either you or your colleagues have created as well. Now, in case you're brand new to ArcGIS Pro, there are a few reasons to consider giving it a shot. First, ArcGIS Pro gives you the ability to visualize, design, edit, and manage your data both in 2D and in 3D. You can even work in both 2D and 3D environments simultaneously within ArcGIS Pro. Second, the application is a true 64-bit application and is multi-threaded, so it can handle several operations at once. ArcGIS Pro also features faster geoprocessing and a new graphics engine allowing for a better 3D experience. All of this translates into better performance and reliability in a desktop application. The final point that I'll make is that compared to the original desktop apps like ArcMap and ArcCatalog, ArcGIS Pro has been modernized with ribbons and panes, making it easier to use and more intuitive to navigate. Those of you who were exposed to ArcView GIS, Desktop's predecessor, would remember that it was possible to create multiple views and layouts. Well, the good news here is that the same can be done with ArcGIS Pro, thus simplifying your workflows and reducing the need for numerous map documents. Because of this change in architecture, it's actually possible to run ArcGIS Pro and ArcMap side by side. So now that we've covered an overview of ArcGIS Pro, let's briefly touch on how you get access. Now, licensing can be a pretty dry topic, but I won't dwell a lot on it, but there's some kind of key things I want you to know. Licensing for ArcGIS Pro within education currently follows the named user model, that you would have access, and so it would give you access to ArcGIS Online and any of the Esri apps like Collector for ArcGIS, Survey 123, or Business Analyst Online. To access ArcGIS Pro, it's assumed that you have an identity or a named user account that is part of your school's ArcGIS Online subscription. Once in place, your school's ArcGIS Online administrator can assign ArcGIS Pro licenses and appropriate extensions to students through custom roles or even through groups. With your identity comes a role, and with that role comes specific privileges, such as the ability to create items and publish hosted feature services, or they're called hosted web layers now in ArcGIS Online. But also the ability to do certain types of spatial analysis, batch geocoding, and geo-enrichment. Now, there are some ArcGIS Pro analysis tools that are tethered to ArcGIS Online, so it will be important to note what you currently have access to versus what you're trying to accomplish. Related to this, credit quotas imposed by your school's ArcGIS Online administrator also apply when using ArcGIS Pro. You can refer to some of our previous webinars for more information on credit management, or just send me an email afterwards and I'll gladly send you the links as well. See, licensing's done. That wasn't so hard. Now we can actually start to think about our workflow of how the rest of the webinar is going to function. And the 5 points that are here on the map really do cover the direction that I want to take you in. The first starts by getting a license for ArcGIS Pro assigned to us. Next, we're going to create a new project and configure it by connecting to folders and potentially connecting to new databases. Then we're going to start importing our content. And this starts by importing any of our map, globe, or scene documents. And finally, once we do that, there is a certain amount of quality control that can be done, and there are new tools built into ArcGIS Pro that are going to help us do that. And a final step, if sharing and publicizing your work is the avenue that you'd like to take, then the last thing you would do is to share or publish your work. Before I go any further into workflows, it's going to be a good idea for us to get comfortable with some of the basics of ArcGIS Pro. I want to start this way because when you decide to use ArcGIS Pro for your workflows, it's important to know how to migrate your content. And it all starts with this concept of a project. Projects help you manage a collection of GIS resources required to complete your work. And ArcGIS Pro allows you to assemble all of these resources in one place, thus becoming a single container for your work. A project contains maps, layouts, tasks, and connections to any servers, databases, toolbox, folders, and styles that you might use. They can also incorporate content from your ArcGIS Online account. Projects are saved to your file system as an APRX file. These project files are similar to map documents that are a product of ArcMap, but contain unique links to data and tools related to your project. How you go about creating a new ArcGIS Pro project is actually very simple. You just launch ArcGIS Pro. And much like what you see on the slide, when ArcGIS Pro first opens, the start page lists several project templates to choose from. For example, to build a 2D map, you can select the map template. To create a 3D scene, you can select either a global scene or a local scene template. However, when migrating any existing work that you have, your best bet is to select the blank project template, and that's what we're going to be working through today. Diving a little bit more into this, basically creating a project does 4 things. It creates a home folder, which is your working directory, a project file that I referred to earlier, which is your APRX file, a default file geodatabase, and a default toolbox where any models and scripts that you create are saved to. Now, I ask you to consider the following path that you see on screen. Let's start with my user directory here. So first I have C:\users iGreensmith, that's tied to me. Further on beyond that, I have my documents in my ArcGIS folder. Now the ArcGIS folder is what is the default directory set up upon install of Desktop, where the default geodatabase lives, in addition to where packages are stored, whether it's layer packages, map packages, and so on, in addition to some other stuff that's related to the product. This last one here relates uniquely to ArcGIS Pro. So within this ArcGIS folder, you'll have a projects folder. And for each new project that you create, a new folder within the projects folder is going to be created as well. So doing this actually saves a significant amount of time by tying everything to one project, tying all of your connections, geodatabases, and so on. The geoprocessing environment, for example, uses this project's default geodatabase to determine the default workspace where output items created by operations are stored. And that just makes a ton of sense. So whether you set it up after you launch ArcMap or it's all set up ahead of time when you launch ArcGIS Pro, it's up to you. But the reality is it saves a lot of time, and it makes things a lot simpler when working with this software. So now that you've set up your project, you can establish connections to all the necessary items to complete your project. From within the project pane, and I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about it, you can view new maps, layouts, and other project items such as folders and database connections. To access your existing data in a project, you need to create connections to your project items. As I mentioned already, you can connect to items such as databases, GIS servers, folders, toolboxes, styles, and more. These items can exist in various places on your local computer, whether it's on a file server or on another database server. Additionally, because you're signed into ArcGIS Online, you can access your content that you've published there as well. Storing connections in the project keeps your list of connections simpler and relevant to the project. And, one thing to really note here, though, is that compared to how connections are managed in ArcCatalog, it's a little bit different. So whereas ArcCatalog will really host all global connections tied to your username, ArcGIS Pro just stores the connections that it needs for that specific project. So in other words, you configure projects like they're self-contained and individually managed. So I'm going to jump out of PowerPoint here and just I want to show you how you would go about configuring a license for ArcGIS Pro, and then we'll go about setting up a project that we're going to use further on in our workflows. There we go. So we're here in ArcGIS Online. I'm signed in as an ArcGIS Online administrator, specifically for our education and research group. Now, if I go into my organization, how I go about managing licenses for ArcGIS Pro, or a business analyst, community analyst, or geoplanner for ArcGIS, they're all done through this link here. It's called Manage Licenses. So you can see all the licenses that we have available to us and to our organization, in addition to other products that we have because of the nature of the account that we have access to. For this, what I want to show you right here is how I can quickly identify someone who does not have an ArcGIS Pro license. So for this here, I'll just select a colleague of mine. He doesn't have a license configured, so I'll just click on Configure License. Assign him an advanced license with a few extensions, and click OK. That notification comes back to say that I've allocated licenses to him. Now, if he were to go and download Pro and log in using his education and research identity, then he would have a license for ArcGIS Pro. But it doesn't just work for one-offs as well. You can actually use it for roles and for groups. You can search based on the default roles that exist, but also by the custom roles that you have created as well. So for this one, I'll just select student, and now anybody who has this role assigned to them, I can actually go through and assign licenses to them. Similarly, for any group that I have, and a perfect example for this is a class. So for a class of 200 students that may already have an identity but don't have access to ArcGIS Pro, then you can actually go through and say, okay, well, any student that's part of this GIS class or this business course can have access to Pro just by choosing the group function and searching for a group here. Okay, so that's how you assign a license. I just wanted to switch over now to ArcGIS Pro. When you launch ArcGIS Pro, this is the first thing you see. This is your start page. And as I mentioned, by default, you have 4 project templates that you can choose from. Now, for us, we're just going to use the blank template. So all I have to do is just click on it. It's going to prompt me to provide a name. And this name is going to persist not only the name of the project, but the name of the folder that's stored in, the name of the geodatabase, the name of the toolbox, and so on. So it's very consistent of how things are tied together. So give it a name. Click OK. And now I'm inside of my project. My naming, my project is called Import MPB. MPB stands for Mountain Pine Beetle. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about what, based on our next demonstration, what the data that's going to come in here. But you've created your project, so the next thing you do is you need to connect and start configuring your project to suit your needs. So the first thing we'll do is I'm going to connect to a folder. And this folder is, specifically relates to my project. I've connected to that folder, and now I'm going to connect to an existing file geodatabase. So here's my default geodatabase created with the project, but I have another geodatabase that I want to connect to. It happens to be in the Pine Beetle folder that I already connected to earlier. I'll select that, and now I have access to not only any new layers that are going to be created and written to my import geodatabase, but also I have existing data as well. So that's what I want to show you for now. I'm going to switch back over to PowerPoint, and then we can move on and talk a little bit more about our migration workflows. So let's see where we are now in our workflow. And for the most part, the first couple points are self-explanatory. We have a license, we've created a blank project, and we've connected to some related resources that are going to be important to us. The next thing we need to start thinking about is how we're going to import our content. And then once we import it, check to see if there are any errors with what we've imported. Now, there are several strategies for adding a 2D map or 3D scene into your project. You can create a new empty map or scene directly into the project just by clicking on New Map from within the Insert ribbon, and that's what the screenshot on the slide is showing you. You can also import ArcGIS Pro map files that were created from another project or other map packages. So there's lots of different ways to bring content in. In fact, excuse me, if given that you're connected to ArcGIS Online, you can even add a web map or a web scene and use that as a map within your project. Now, for this webinar, I'm just going to be focusing on importing a map and a scene from other desktop applications. Now, you can import existing documents created in ArcMap, ArcScene, and ArcGlobe to your project. You do this from, again, within the Insert tab by clicking on the Import Map button. You just point to the MXD, SXD, or 3DD file and select it, and then it'll start importing into the project. It's important to note at this point, though, that as soon as you import a map, you effectively make a copy of the map. So if you were to go back to the original map that's in ArcMap, for example, and make some changes to the map, and even if you save it, those changes won't be reflected in the ArcGIS Pro project. So it's just something to keep in mind. When you import a map document from ArcMap, at least one map and one layout are going to be added to the project. For every data frame that existed in ArcMap, a new map will be added to the project. The data frame or layout that was active in the original document is opened in the project. Now, I've said project a bunch of times here, and the thing to stress is that when the last time that you saved ArcMap, the data frame that was active, that's going to be the one that's visible first when you import your map into ArcGIS Pro. ArcGlobe and ArcScene documents are imported into ArcGIS Pro as scenes. So we have maps and scenes and layouts. Other elements of your map document, such as bookmarks, feature symbology, standalone tables, and metadata, are also importable into your Pro project, and I'm going to show you that in a bit. However, not everything in your map document will be properly imported. Some layout elements, such as graticules and grids, are not supported at this time. And some other data formats that were previously supported in ArcMap are not supported in ArcGIS Pro either. A good example of this are personal geodatabases. Layers that reference this format in the original map will not draw successfully after being imported. So it's always a good idea to perform a visual check of all of your maps and layouts after the import is complete to determine if your elements migrated properly. But this might leave you scratching your head and asking the question, well, is there a good way to monitor the import process? And the answer is yes. When importing completes, a message is added to the Notifications tab. The Notifications tab lives within the Projects pane, and I'm going to come back to that. The message provides a link to a report that lists all errors and warnings encountered. This report will point out any significant errors in the migration process that need to be addressed. It will also flag any warnings that you should check in your maps and your layouts. Now, if ArcGIS Pro can't access the data sources specified in the original document, the report will indicate this as an error. And you'll see, so you'll also see an indication of this next to the layer in the Contents pane, or what's also called the Table of Contents in ArcMap, as a red exclamation mark. So it's really nice to see that there is a lot of functionality that we're used to in ArcMap, or older desktop applications that are being transferred into ArcGIS Pro. So those of you who have familiarity with both software tools, then you'd be able to pick up on this quite quickly. So with that exclamation mark there, then you'd be able to fix the data source or migrate it to a new supported data set using some of the data conversion geoprocessing tools, and link that up with the project and keep moving forward. Now, at a high level, some other common import issues can result from the following. ArcGIS Pro uses a different version of Python now compared to ArcMap. And with this come changes to the functionality of ArcPy module. This means that some custom model and script tools are not going to work in ArcGIS Pro and may require updating. So, and to help uncover these issues, a new geoprocessing tool called Analyze Tools for Pro, and a geoprocessing option that's been under the same name that have been built into ArcGIS Pro to find these unsupported tools and really help you update your model or script to help make it work in ArcGIS Pro. Models built in Model Builder should continue to work fine. Just note that new models created in Pro aren't backwards compatible, so you can't go back to ArcMap and expect them to start working. Also note that any expressions that you typically use to write in VBScript or Python now have to be exclusively written in Python. Finally, any Arc object space added that you may have built is actually going to need to be completely rewritten using the .NET SDK for ArcGIS Pro. So we've talked about now the migration workflow and some quality control that can be done. Let's switch back over to ArcGIS, or back to ArcMap. Actually, I want to switch to ArcMap first, and just walk you through the first map document that I'm going to import into ArcGIS Pro. So this here is looking at data from Parks Canada. It contains contains raster data, vector data. It also contains a number of bookmarks, custom symbology, some time-aware data, and it really just a lot of data to try to bring in. I wanted to start here to show you that note that part A, what this is my last active data frame. When I save this, this is going to be the first data frame, or map rather, that shows up when I switch over to Pro. So from Pro, now that I've set up my my project, I've configured it to connect to a folder and connect to a relevant file geodatabase, I can actually go from the Insert tab, go to Import Map, browse to my Mountain Pineville map document, select that, and in a relatively short period of time, it will import all of my data and all of the symbology and even the data frames. Now, don't stress if you don't see parts B and C below this. To see the other data frames that were added, you go back to the project pane, and you can expand the maps folder here. I can add this data frame here that has my time-aware data that I mentioned, and it's already set up, ready to go, and I can just click play, and it will start drawing. Now, I had talked about notifications. So notifications are found in the project pane under the Notifications tab. So I can click on this and just see this is the message that's been generated based on the import process. Click to see the result. It's going to open an XML file in a web browser and show me that I do have some warnings that that should be addressed, but for the most part, it has imported with great success. So it's quite easy to see how quickly you can bring this type of information in from one document into a project. So I'm going to save that, and what I want to do now is show you how you can bring in 2D and 3D content at the same time. And to do that, I'm just going to quickly create another project. My new project is created now. Now I want to, again, configure it. I don't have a file geodatabase to connect to, but this one specifically is looking at data related to the Mount St. Helens eruption. So I can browse to that folder, select it, and now I've established that connection here. And if I were to expand it, you would see that I have some raster data. I even have some TINs that were created, but then I also have an ArcScene document and a map document. And I'm going to import these now by repeating the process. So going back to my folder that I've connected to, selecting these two documents, let them come in side by side, and so you can see that the data is here. There we go. And to show you how you can view them even side by side, I can just grab one scene and drag it down so that docks right beside the other. To go one step further, if I was interested in seeing how whether I want to do some analysis based in 2D and in 3D, or even to do some editing in a 3D environment, then what I would do is go to the View tab here and link my data views based on scale and center them as well. So now I can zoom in, I can pan around, and both views both of these will update. So in a relatively short period of time, I've imported multiple documents into 2 separate projects. All the data is transferred over. If I were to go to check on the notifications here, you'd see that I have notifications for both the map document and the scene document that can be analyzed at a later time. But for now, let's switch back to the slides and we'll keep going in our workflow. So we've imported things. Now we need to look at how we're going to publish them. Now, publishing might not be for everyone, but since you're already connected to ArcGIS Online with your identity, it really makes things a lot easier. Now, ArcGIS Pro provides numerous avenues for sharing content. For example, you can create new layer, map, and layout files that store the item's definition, and in most cases references the underlying data sets. This makes it easy for others to access the content you've built, as long as they've got access to the reference data of the item. Similar to models that I referred to earlier, layer files, map files, and layout files, for example, are not backwards compatible. So if you create something in Pro, don't expect it to work in Map, but it is forwards compatible. So if anything that you create with ArcMap, just as I showed you in the import process, is going to be recognized and you can start using it right away in Pro. So those are your item files. The next are packages, where you can share layer, map, or an entire project package. And this is nice because there's a real difference between this and your item files, is that this consolidates all your content into one file. So it's the symbology and the data and the reference data. It's your map, all of the data, all the symbology, or it's the entire project packaged for extraction for later use by yourself or a colleague. And packages are neat too, so they can actually even be used for archive purposes as well. Finally, just as I outlined in the geoinformation model at the start of this webinar, you can share your work as a web layer, a web map, or a web scene directly to ArcGIS Online. And those can be reused actually in ArcGIS Pro, as well as across the ArcGIS platform, including through web applications or even through mobile devices. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch back to Pro. I'm going to open up my Pine Beetle demonstration again. You'll see here that by opening up my project directory, you see all the projects that I have. I can select my import. MPB stands for Mountain Pine Beetle. Select that, and it's going to open right back up. Okay, so what I'm specifically interested in is this time-aware data that's in another map. Now, if I click on a layer, you'll see that different menus in the ribbon appear. So, for example, I'm clicking on a raster data set here. So anything related to raster data would, in terms of appearance or resampling of the data, would appear here. When it comes to a vector data set, for example, now I would get feature layer options. But then I would also get these options for time as well. So I can modify what it looks like, how it plays, and so on. But what I'm specifically interested in are the sharing options. So under the sharing tab, you'll see here we have our item files. So these are our map files, our layer files. But we also have the ability to create packages, whether I want to package up this entire project and send it to someone, or I just want to give someone this map that has my aerial survey points that represent tree stands that have been impacted by the pine beetle. I can share that, or if I just want to give somebody the aerial survey points themselves, then I can create a layer package and send that on. So for what I want to show you today, I'm just going to right click on aerial survey points, scroll down to share as web layer. Just to clean this up a little bit. There we go. I'm going to give it a new name. Summary, and just a quick tag. So for those who are searching for it, they'll be able to find it. And just like you would go through if you were publishing content to ArcGIS server or directly from ArcMap to ArcGIS Online, you would still want to analyze the data set that you want to publish. No errors or warnings are coming back, so I can go ahead and publish this data set. Now, this data set actually has around 9,000 points, so it's quite a large data set, and it's going to take some time to upload. And what ArcGIS Pro is actually doing is it's actually creating a layer package first. It's going to upload that layer package to ArcGIS Online. ArcGIS Online is going to extract the layer package and then publish it as a hosted feature layer, or a web layer, as the terminology is here in ArcGIS Pro. So in the interest of time, what I thought I'd do is I'd switch back over to ArcGIS Online. We'll get out of the managed license side and go over to my content. And you'll see here, I've got a couple of layers here that I've published ahead of time. But the first one here is the one I want to show you. So I'm just going to click here, add it to a new map. Now, because it's just referencing the data set that was originally in Pro, it's going to zoom into the exact area that borders British Columbia and Alberta. And you're going to notice that an error pops up. This error pops up just because of the drawing issues that the browser has. So in ArcMap, for example, you can change how many points are drawn on the map. But for our purposes, I'm actually just going to zoom into Yoho National Park. I'll let the points redraw. And one of the last things I'll show you is how we can actually enable that time animation. So in a relatively short period of time, you've seen how I can import content or import an entire map document from ArcMap, bring it into Pro, identify a data set that I want to publish, package that data set up, publish it to ArcGIS Online, and now, since it's already been shared, since the data has already been shared, it's just a matter of saving a web map, either sharing the web map rather, with colleagues, or going one step further and embedding that into one of our configurable applications, or if you're savvy enough to be able to develop applications on your own, then you're more than welcome to do that as well. So let's switch back to our slides, and we're just going to wrap things up. In this webinar, you've learned the basic workflows to migrate your work to ArcGIS Pro and share layers with others in your school's ArcGIS Online subscription. I hope that you're able to apply some of the talking points to work and start using ArcGIS Pro in the near future. I want to remind you about some upcoming webinars that are being offered by Esri Canada over the next couple of months. So if this interests you, please keep your eyes peeled for more information. The first one on the Web App Builder for ArcGIS Developer Edition, and then the other on leveraging data and analytics across the ArcGIS platform. If you're looking for documentation in regards to help documentation, a great starting point for those type of resources, and even the ones that helped me put together my slides for today, are the Esri help documentation. So the first link here talks about migration workflows for ArcMap users, completely relevant to what we talked about. And the second one is just a general help link to ArcGIS Pro and really is set up the exact same way as the help documentation for ArcMap, but it does still give you insight into how you would go about performing certain tasks. So there's and it's separate from desktop as well. So you don't have to worry about confusing terminologies and workflows. Now, if you're looking for learning resources, that is tutorials or lessons that can be used with your students or even applied to suit your own needs, then I invite you to take a look at the following. The first one is Esri's new training site that was rolled out at the beginning of August, which schools that are currently on maintenance would have access to. Second is the Learn ArcGIS website. This is a great spot to go to for ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Pro resources, in addition to ArcMap resources as well. One that I really like is the desktop analysis page that's kind of embedded within the desktop help. But I like it because it contains case studies, and these case studies provide examples of how analysis can actually be done and carried out with a variety of different tools. So whether you want to do something in ArcGIS Online, or you want to do something in ArcGIS Pro, or even just stick to ArcMap, that's fine. These case studies might be exactly what you're looking for. If you're looking for something a little bit more homegrown, some Canadian examples, then I invite you to check out Esri Canada's lesson planner as well. On behalf of the Education Research Group at Esri Canada, I want to thank you for attending today's webinar, and we'll see you guys again soon.